Hello, my name is Mary Jane Rakowski, and I'm here to talk about the death penalty and whether it should be legal or not. Okay, so my thesis statement is that the death penalty should be legal because it is a tool in the preservation of law and order. I have three arguments that support my claim and my thesis statement. The first is that capital punishment helps to deter crime. The second is that capital punishment is a useful tool for the preservation of law and order. And finally, my third argument states that it ensures that perpetrators of violent crimes never have the opportunity to cause harm in the future again. So, my first argument is that the death penalty helps to deter crime, and studies show that there is a deterrence effect. Murder rates increase in periods of time when the death penalty is inactive, and murder rates decrease in periods of time when the death penalty is active. So, from the Emory University Economics Department chairman and Emory professors, they state that our results suggest that capital punishment has a strong deterrent effect. An increase in any of the probabilities, arrest, sentencing, or execution, tends to reduce the crime rate. In particular, each execution results on average in 18 fewer murders with a margin of error of plus or minus 10. My next argument is that it preserves law and order. The death penalty helps to preserve law and order. Jean-Jacques Rousseau favors the death penalty, stating that once someone decides to kill another human, that they give up their right to live or die to the government. So he stated in the Social Contract, Book 2, Chapter 5, The Right of Life and Death, the social treaty has for its end the preservation of the contracting parties. He who wishes to preserve his life at others' expense should also, when it is necessary, be ready to give it up for their sake. When the prince says to him, "It is expedient for the state that you should die," he ought to die. The death penalty inflicted upon criminals may be looked on in much the same light. It is in order that we may not fall victims to an assassin that we consent to die if we ourselves turn assassins. So basically, this point is my main argument, that once someone decides that they decide the fate of someone else, that they decide whether they should live or die, then they themselves give up their right to live or die to the government. That decision is up to the government now because their victim did not have a choice in the matter. Next, we have the death that capital punishment saves lives. So, according to Cass R. Sunstein and Adrian Vermeule, they state in their paper, "Is capital punishment morally required? The relevance of life-life trade-offs," but the existence of life-life trade-offs raises the possibility that for those who oppose killing, a rejection of capital punishment is not necessarily mandated. On the contrary, it may well be morally compelled. At the very least, those who object to capital punishment and do so in the name of protecting life must come to terms with the fact that the failure to inflict capital punishment might fail to protect life. So, capital punishment saves lives, but it also provides some closure for those who are impacted by the actions of murderers and criminals. So, the whole point of the death penalty is so the government can give some sort of emotional closure for families, and it can make the victims whole again. So here we have some executed serial killers. Now these serial killers were executed and society is deemed as safer now. So first we have John Wayne Gacy. He sexually assaulted and murdered 33 young men and boys. He was executed by lethal injection in 1994. Next we have Ted Bundy, who kidnapped, raped, and decapitated over 30 women. He was executed by electrocution in 1989. Next, we have Eileen Wuornos. She killed 7 men who she claims attempted to rape her. She was executed by lethal injection on October 2nd, 2002. Finally, we have Carl Panzram. He was an American serial killer, rapist, arsonist, robber, and burglar. He was executed by hanging on September 5th, 1930. Okay, so now we're going to talk about the rebuttals supporting anti-death penalty beliefs. And I put this picture here of a woman holding up a sign saying, "Why would we kill people to show that killing is wrong?" And this is propaganda that those who oppose the death penalty use, and I believe that it is also a fallacy. So our first rebuttal is that innocent people are executed, and the government has too much power to execute people, and death penalty is inherently unfair and racially based or biased. Okay, so the first rebuttal is that people are wrongfully accused and they are wrongfully executed, but according to the American Civil Liberties Union, in the United States, as of September 2011, 273 people, including 17 death row inmates, have been exonerated by use of DNA tests. The increasing use of DNA testing to help confirm the innocence or guilt in capital cases is one among many reforms that will help ensure that innocent people are not sentenced to death. So those who are against the death penalty say that it gives the government too much power, but in the end, it is the jury that decides whether somebody gets the death penalty or not. And Justice Byron White advocated Georgia's death penalty laws, stating that the law will guide the jury in its exercise of discretion as to whether or not it will impose the death penalty for first-degree murder, but also gives the Georgia Supreme Court the power and imposes the obligation to decide whether, in fact, the death penalty was being administered for any given class of crime in a discriminatory, standardless, or rare fashion. So our final rebuttal is that the death penalty is racially biased. And according to the study completed by RAND titled Race and the Decision to Seek the Death Penalty in Federal Cases, researchers actually found that prosecutors sought the death penalty against a higher percentage of white defendants than either African American or Hispanic defendants. In addition, the death penalty was more likely to be sought against defendants who murdered whites than against those who killed African Americans or Hispanics. And in this graphic I put here, it says that 43.5% of federal death row prisoners are white. Now we're going to talk about fallacies or potential fallacies in the argument. So our first fallacy is the appeal to emotion. This fallacy is used to appeal to the emotions of the audience and persuade them to side with the argument by using emotionally biased information. So an example of this is that the death penalty is a very emotional and controversial issue. So a father whose daughter was murdered would want her murderer to receive the death penalty because he has strong emotions about this issue. Next, we have appeal to ignorance. This fallacy occurs when someone believes something just because there is no evidence to disprove this theory. So someone might claim that there has been no proof that an innocent person has received the death penalty, meaning that the system is not flawed. This point is irrelevant because there is no evidence to support these claims. Okay, thank you for listening. Oh my god, bro, I fucking did it.